Hey everybody, Chris Newberry with the Life Team at the Brokerage. So glad you could join us today. One of the things we're trying to do at the Brokerage is to give you a more holistic approach to your practice. You just can't be a Medicare salesperson or a life or a health insurance salesperson. You got to do it all. And in addition to that, there's a lot of questions that we hear that are happening to you all the time that you need to address. So we're trying to give you the right resources, the right tools to give you that wisdom. With that, really delighted today to have Cory Procter, the owner and founder of Pro Capital. And he's got a wealth management firm that is becoming a great partner of ours, and I think it's going to be a great partner of yours as well. Cory, how you doing?
Good. Come on. Thanks for having me.
One of the things, you've got sort of an interesting backstory. So how did you get into this? What drives your passion for wealth management?
Oh, it was never something I intended on, right? I had, like many people, I kind of fell into based off my own story in my past. I had, coming up, I'm from Washington State, and my junior high school, I rear-ended a lady, got into a car accident. Oh. She filed suit. A year later, my mom, stepdad had to file for bankruptcy. And so I came back to them. I came back my freshman year of college to them living in the apartment and starting over right there. And, that was, I think like most guys, it didn't hit me really hard. It just kind of tucked it in the back of my head. Yeah. Well, I ended up playing pro football, mostly with the Cowboys, and 6 years in the NFL. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I always kind of had this back thought. I didn't want that to repeat itself. And so, like everybody else, I got sold to like crazy from every wealth manager, asset manager every insurance person that could lay eyes on me. They had some sort of pitch. And I didn't really want to hear it all. I didn't care about getting an extra point or two in my portfolio. I just didn't want that to happen. And for that car accident, everything that I've worked for up to this point to get taken. And so I basically made a mission out of my life to understand what I was involved with. And now one of my mentors playing ball, Marco Rivera, awesome guy, hooked me up with a lady out of Wisconsin, an advisor. And she got me involved in good things, and I made great money. And she'd take time because I'd ask a bunch of stupid questions. And eventually those turned smart. And ultimately, that 2010 was my last year playing. And so we're 15 years removed from the league, and my wife and I and family, we're in a way better position today than we ever were playing ball, which is not the case typically. And so really the calling came to me later. It was go repeat this for other people. We put a vault around our life to make sure we couldn't get sued and lose everything. And because of that, I went down the rabbit hole looking for other train wreck issues. And, well, how other ways could the enemy creep into my house and steal my castle? And there's lots of ways. And so that became the premise of the company, which was standing guard, building legacy, making sure the castle couldn't get stolen from underneath you.
That's very cool. That is very cool. What a backstory. Man, that is really interesting. Well, what's going on right now? It seems like there has just been a electric pulse that has happened in our world over the last 4 or 5 months. And, with new taxes, tariffs, whatever, even I'm getting calls from clients and other agents saying, what is going on? I just looked at my 401k and it's dropped a lot. What should I do? I mean, are you sensing a panic mode out there, or what are you sensing out there in the environment?
Oh, I mean, there's always short-term fluctuations that go on in the market.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what we tell clients is it's completely goal dependent. It depends on what you're trying to execute. There's no president, no administration that will come in and completely derail your long-term plan. And so, that being said, if I'm retiring next year and I have a major market hit this year and I'm in all growth mode where I'm just as aggressive as I can be, that can be a problem, right? If I'm trying to turn it on into an income position, that's an issue, which, yeah, you should be worried about something like that. Versus if I have 10, 15, 20 years or a lot more, we're focusing on long-term anyways. Yeah. And so as it comes to planning, it is dependent on what you need as the client. And really that's our job, is to pull that out. Now, what I do think is really good right now for the short term, for these tariff talks, for the fiscal spending, is, these new treasuries came out and there wasn't a spike like they thought they would be. And I think really the good thing about our federal government is they have to deal with the market in real time. And our people, our consumers our clients are the ones that are really dictating where those profits and companies are going, and so where the market flows. And so I think our response really is something the government has to look at, because they've been completely irresponsible, especially in the last several years, for their fiscal spending. And I mean, there's a lot of us that we like the new tax potential, but don't like the fiscal spending that it adds on to the boat. Right. And so, a lot of that forces, we need a federal government that reconciles that. And so but as it comes to the end result, and like ours, it's dependent on you. Think long-term always. And if it's a short-term need, we have to account for that in our planning. And your advisor, whoever your professionals you're working with, should address that. And if it's not being addressed, maybe you've outgrown your advisor. Right.
Well, that's a big point too. And having outgrown an advisor, people's life changes. So as a lot of our agents are, talking to clients about Medicare as they're aging into age 65 or just past 65. They're not only Medicare eligible, but they're retiring too. So that brings probably a wide array of conversations and opportunities. What should our advisors be looking for in that turning 65 market?
Easy things that you can be looking for is like, what does my asset bed look like? And I would tell this is, especially for anybody who's just does insurance products, is get a full financial picture, get a full thing of what we're looking for, and get the goals of the client, and then talk about options together. Bring the menu. We talk about bringing the menu list out, right? Let's talk about this, and let's talk about pros and cons of each, because if we'll have this pretty consistently where somebody will come in and they're either facing retirement or they're in retirement even, and they talk about how conservative they are. They're like, I'm not aggressive. Meanwhile, a third of their net worth is in Eli Lilly, and in one single holding, which pays, I think it was like a 0.32% dividend or something. Mm-hmm. And so they'll come in thinking they're conservative, but their advisor has them in the most aggressive stance that you could potentially be in. And so those are things that you can spot as an advisor, really, and be like, well, that doesn't match up with what you're saying right now. And so, if they have a mismatch there's opportunity for you to fix an issue. And we had a situation with that exactly last year. A couple people had huge single stock positions. Well, now we're realizing, potentially looking about how are we going to handle a capital gain issue? We're going to pair some of this off. Are we going to look at an income producing model that we can shift them to? And we've had situations where we've had to pay a capital gain bill, which nobody wants, but we've had to pay a tax bill, and where essentially they had less on the balance sheet, but we were able to put them into a higher income producing and still go for growth to overcome inflation, but put them into a vehicle. One was a combination brokerage account where we had an over 3% dividend payout, and then another one was a combination with annuity where we had an over 5% payout. So that together, right, they had a blended rate of almost 4% payout that they'd never had before in their life. Wow. And they were ecstatic because they got more income off less money. And so those are items where you can easily come to the table with as you're looking at a picture of somebody's financial life and be like, okay, what's the purpose of this? What's the purpose of this? What are you getting out of it now? Are you satisfied with it? Do you want more? Bring it out of them. And that ends up being some really powerful conversation that brings a lot of credibility to your side of the table.
Well, I know you've mentioned this a couple of times in our conversations that, you're looking at somebody's existing portfolio and maybe they've been in an Eli Lilly and they didn't really know what they had. Do you recommend a second opinion for a lot of people? I mean, should they have maybe you look at it even though they've had a long-term relationship with somebody?
If it's like a close friend or something?
Yeah. Or a brother-in-law or whatever got them into it in the first place.
I never use a second opinion language necessarily. I never felt like that was a great
right
entrance for me. Not to say it's not for other people, but for me, I launch into asking questions, and naturally, because of our profession, we might be sitting down at lunch or coffee, and you just start asking me questions. What do you think about the market? What do you think about this? And I got involved in this annuity. I got involved in this product, or I got Medicare coming up, and I'm not sure what to deal with that. And so okay, so what's your plan? They don't have a plan. And okay, well, tell me what's going on with your asset picture. Where do you have money at? You have brokerage, you got IRA, do you have taxable accounts? Do you just have a bunch of real estate? I get really blunt with it, and they're asking my opinion. I'm going to be blunt back. And so what it does is it forces you to talk, right? You have to share what's going on and what you really want out of that. And as it comes out, I can find problems. Yeah. And so that's really what we're getting down to. The issue here is, what's the problem? You have a problem you're asking or dancing around right now with, and let's get it out to the open and see if you already have it solved.
Right.
You may not know it. You're worrying about nothing. Or if you actually have the problem and you need to anticipate it. And so that's where really the credibility in our firm has just skyrocketed, because my advisors and my mentors that I've had in my life, there's a reason they've separated themselves as being the best. Mm-hmm. And it's because they were able to pull that out of the client, and they had raving reviews. Wow. If you go to our Google reviews, you'll see. Like, we got one recently from somebody that like, you keep me from climbing on the wall. You like, keep me off the wall so I'm not screaming. But it ends up being super powerful, because so many people in our business, we have a ton of red tape in our business, justifiably so, because we have inexperienced people that want to just get a money grab and get the assets. And then you have older people that have phoned it in somehow, and they're in pre-retirement mode, and they just roll into whatever. And we don't want that, man. We want to serve you, because this. If you and I do business together and tomorrow you have regret about doing business together, that's a bad thing. And absolutely. I want whatever it is past that moment we do business together, I want you to feel so good about that and get reinforced by that every day. And if I've done that, I've set myself up for a ton of long-term success, and not just a great relationship, but just amazing stuff in our business.
Well, you're right. And one of the things you mentioned too, is the concept of having a menu, and some opportunities there. And, I think so many advisors, they are tunnel vision on doing the Medicare, doing a great job on Medicare, and then just sort of walking away. And, without a menu or an opportunity, they don't know what else that advisor does or can do for them, really. So what would, in your mind, would a menu look like for an advisor maybe after a Medicare meeting?
I would tee it up. So I'd set the expectation. You never want somebody to feel like they're just being sold to. Yeah. Right? So I don't want that feeling. I don't want you to have that where you're just looking for more commission grab on me or something. Right. And so tee it up, meaning ask some questions. I know I have my menu. I know I'm going to bring that to you at some point, and I tell you that. Like, this is part of my process. Okay, we're going to deal with this Medicare issue first, but then I'm going to ask you some other questions about your life, because I want to make sure you're taken care of all around. Like, this is one of many potential issues. You may be completely set. Yeah. Are you good with that? And I ask your permission. Right. Yeah, okay. If you believe that I really care about you, you're going to have the best intentions. And so, okay, let's take care of your Medicare stuff, get that executed. Okay, come back to our menu, and you have your menu list of items. And these are really questions or problem areas that you may or may not. And so then I can ask about income and retirement. How much is enough? What are you looking for? Is your asset bet, is that going to be enough to fuel what you have right now that you want in retirement plus Social Security? Do you want asset protection? Do you want more legacy? Do you want more of these things? And you can talk about the pros and cons of all those categories and what they may be giving up or what they may want in that. And that way, when you know the goals, overall goals, I can bring out that menu and I can say, for us, we talk about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, annuities, life insurance as an investment vehicle. We talk about business development companies, we talk about wrap accounts. We talk about it all.
Right.
And our people, whether you have one page or several pages worth of menu items, our people love it. And every single one of them, they all have some knowledge about some of it, but they don't know about a lot of it. Yeah. And so just because of that, it starts sparking ideas. And for us, what we love, obviously we want referrals. We want all those things just like anybody else. But what's so great about it is we'll talk about real estate and how we live in a real estate mecca in Texas and how, my family's benefited crazy from this. But there are certain tax structures that we can get into to not pay a capital gain. You would do a 1031 exchange, or on the life side, do a 1035 exchange. So we're not just liquidating, paying a cap gain and taking the tax hit and an unnecessary deal. And, we had a situation with that year and a half ago or something, where we saved over $900,000 in taxes on capital gains. For one person because they were unaware that you could do a 1031 exchange into what's called the Delaware Statutory Trust. And I don't need to drive into that, but that was on our menu list. And just because we brought it up, they're like, that's funny because I have this $10.8 million piece of property that I'm selling right now. And I'm like, I'm sitting here, did you take it in the bank? You didn't take it in the bank, right. Did you? And they're like, well, not yet. Okay, don't. And so then we could have a bigger conversation. And just because of that, we were able to circumvent a massive tax bill and put them in something that served them, give them a ton of income. So the same thing on whether you're a full advisor or an insurance agent, take out the menu list. Yeah. Talk about these things. What do you want? What do you not want? And what are pros and cons of all? Let them make a selection in this or have a word anyways. So it ends up being a super powerful piece.
I agree with you. It's one of those things that, I remember as a young agent, I sold a friend of mine, a really successful real estate agent, a health policy. And 3 months later, I was talking to him. He said, I just bought a big life insurance policy. And I said, why didn't you use me? He said, well, I didn't know you did that. What? I needed to have that menu there. So it really gave me that missionary zeal to make sure that people know what I do and what opportunities they have to have those significant conversations. So you're right. One of the things you mentioned, Cory, you do, work with a lot of people. You've seen a lot of things. Is there a couple of themes that seem to come up regularly that are maybe a blind spot in people's planning? I mean, are there a couple of things that you see a lot as far as a potential issue or a potential opportunity in people's planning?
Tons. I got a whole treasure trove of problems that I see. And I mean, it could be, we'll talk a lot about probate problems in our business. And so like in the state of Texas, we talk about liability issues. There's train wreck scenarios everywhere. But in the state of Texas, we have an unlimited creditor exemption against our homestead, right? Our primary residence. So meaning somebody can't sue us and get the equity we have in our home. Yeah. And a vehicle and up to $30,000 in the bank. And so that's a good thing. Well, but the secondary problem that comes in is it could be a probate problem. So majority of homes in Texas are we may have asset protection, but we don't have probate protection. So they're all listed in their personal name. And so if you've ever been through probate or intestate and intestacy, it's a big problem because it's public process and it's contestable, meaning something could get stolen even if you have a will. And so, you know, I have no intention on, you know, since I've been playing ball, the hands have been out. Somebody wants money, and they may be well-intentioned, but they never made any effort to go do it themselves. So I'm not gonna further aid somebody else's laziness. And so, you know, if you're in that boat at all, I have no intention on leaving my money to anybody else other than my wife and children. Anyone, ever. Yeah. So, and that will never change. And so, you know, we want to come in and we want to protect against somebody trying to come steal that in probate. And so that's a major issue that you can easily bring to the table as a line item to fix. But past that, you know, if we're just dealing around our financial products, it could be asset protection within the financial plan. It could be protection in other areas. I know if I ask about somebody's beneficiaries on their accounts, I know almost 100% of the time they're going to have a primary beneficiary. It's going to be their spouse. Mm-hmm. And over 80% of the time, they're not going to have any contingent beneficiary at all. And if they do, it's usually going to be a minor. Right. And so I know that's a problem. Why? Because if my wife and I, if it's just my wife and I, and she's the primary, I only have primaries, her and I get in a car accident and die, we think it's going to the kids when really it's going to probate now. Goes before the judge. And so the question is, do you really want a judge deciding what happens to your money?
Right.
We all know it's no.
Yeah.
Make them answer the question.
Yeah, for sure.
But so, okay, so you need a contingent on there. Well, what's the secondary problem of a contingent? Well, I have my sister on potentially because she'll take care of my kids, right? That's great. I'm not saying that she would ever do this, but she has no legal requirement to give that money to your kids. So she could just decide, if you got $1 million going to her, decide that she should be paid $500,000 for that transaction, and only half goes to your kids. So the reason those are really two massive issues always, but they get breezed by no problem. It's because everybody's focused on the money, the investment. And so they're like, make sure you put your beneficiaries on there, and that's all that gets said, and it never happens. And so some people will do it, but I know numbers are on my side to find a problem right there.
Well, that is so important. You're exactly right. And even, the best of kids, even if they're a young adult, if something were to happen and they were granted a windfall of money, I've seen bad things happen. They'll buy the big new car and they'll get a bunch of new friends for X amount of months, but then when the money's out, those friends sort of go away and they don't have any money. It's sad. It really is. You're exactly
it's like your
right.
Drinking buddies.
Exactly
you
right.
Stop drinking.
That's
They're not
right.
your buddies anymore.
That's right. Yeah. When the tab's closed, the evening's over. You're exactly right. So tell me this: how would our advisors access you? How would they find you and what they're doing?
So you can go to our website, procapitaltx.com,
okay,
or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there every day, and I post every day, and so I do that on purpose. But come connect with our team. We'd love to help. There's a lot of areas out there that aren't getting served properly, and there's more people in our industry with a good heart than not. And so I'd rather take the people with a good heart that have an honest desire to do right by their clients and help them out. And so reach out to it. We do have our minimum $1 million on the wealth management side, right? Okay. If you have a client you want to partner with, sub that, we still have all the same problems. So if you want to help and partner together on something there, we're happy to find issues that maybe you just aren't aware of yet. But they end up being a huge credibility boost to you because nobody else has ever brought that up before. We had one of our new clients came on Q1 this year. They're interviewing 2 other advisors, and they came on with us, and they said it in the meeting. They were like, you are definitely more expensive than this other person that we liked most. But they didn't bring up anything that you brought up today. Nothing.
That's good. That's
so
powerful.
Who did they choose? They went with us, and which was great was, menu selection with them. We're implementing 401ks with the company. They like the executive bonus plan for life insurance. So that's a portion of it. We're going to do some other stuff on their personal side that's really going to boost them and be powerful. But they chose a more expensive option because of the issues that we found. And so, we tell people get so fixated on cost so much that your cost is completely dependent on the value that you bring to the table. And people are more than happy to overpay for something. How many of us go to Disney World every year and completely overpay for the experience at Disney rather than going to the local fair?
Right.
That costs an absolute fraction of the price, right? But people go, why? Because experience is the number one thing people will pay for. Mm-hmm. And if you're giving them that experience and that value, then they will be happy to hand over money to you. It's amazing what it is, but I promise if you can find those problems, people will love you.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Your team are rock stars at Pro Capital. I mean, you got a great team, and they really are hard workers and really do what they need to do to help make life easier for a whole lot of people. So kudos to you and building a great team. And you said you're active on social media. You also do a podcast as well, right?
We do. Yeah. Pro Capital Show,
right?
Wisdom and Wealth. And so I would encourage anybody who's listening to this to go follow, because we have some amazing people. The goal there behind Wisdom and Wealth is it's based off Solomon, and in Proverbs, if you're a Proverbs fan at all, it was, he didn't seek wealth, he sought wisdom. And because of the wisdom, wealth was a side effect of the wisdom. And so the same thing in our business. This is one of my superpowers is I'm high quick start, any Colby A people out there, but I go find people that are way better than me. Way better than me. I don't need to know everything. I just need to know enough to make me dangerous. And so find those people and compress basically 20, 30, 40 years worth of wisdom into a short time period and squeeze that. We used to call it squeeze the blood out of the rock. And where I'm trying to get as much of that knowledge as possible to accelerate my business. And so I heard a really encouraging thing the other day from one of my main mentors, and you'll hear a ton of wisdom, but what was really cool about it was where we're at from a revenue standpoint. She grew up her financial advisory practice and sold it up. Her kids didn't want it, so that was her goal, was to build up something that was valuable that ran on its own. Yep. And so she sold it off, and what a lot of people want to build up their business for, and had something great. Well, what was so cool was she had built this freedom into her life, but she had shared, she goes, well, I was at this revenue point, and I don't want to be too oversharing of it. It's her information, but she shared this where she goes, I was at this revenue point by year 11 or 12. I'm like, well, we passed that up in year 4. And it was cool to me because all that shows is that in our company, we took that wisdom from her and other people and compressed it into our business. Mm-hmm. So it forced a faster acceleration curve in our value to the clients, and the side effect, revenue to the business. Yeah. So why I say that is go listen to the people we have on Wisdom and Wealth. These are people that have built up amazing businesses and that are absolute spring wells of information. And if you go do that and go read like crazy and go listen to those people that are chock full of wisdom, you're gonna be a side effect of them. And that's what I want. And so check them out. That's what I want in my business. That's what I want in yours. I want everybody, rising tide raises all ships, right? I want that. Because if you're winning, we're winning together. And I only want to hang out with those people.
I remember a quote I heard many years ago that you're the same today as you will be 5 years from now with the exception of the books you read and the people you meet. So, that's really what you said. It's where you gather that wisdom. It's being around the right people, putting that right information in your head through reading, which is a dying art as well. So it's a sad deal, really. This is not anywhere near the end of our conversations, because we're going to continue this. You were at our office last week at our symposium. Great response from our advisors on what you were talking about with them. We're also going to be doing a presentation on August 12th, Tuesday, August 12th, I believe, at the Brokerage office in Flower Mound, Texas. And we're going to have you there talking about wealth management, what that looks like for our advisors, what they need to be doing. And your tag team partner for that day is Mike Smith, our president emeritus, who has become a real expert on Social Security planning. And that's another sort of sidebar hot topic of what a lot of people want to know about, because it affects everybody, regardless of income, regardless of whether their, main emphasis is on, a Medicare conversation or a life conversation or a health conversation. Social Security is a big part of that. So to have you two together on the same stage, I don't know what we're charging for that. It's got to be a lot, but the first few get in free. So I encourage you to register. It's on our website, and we can get that going. But that's Tuesday, August 12th, that morning in our office here in Flower Mound. So anything to wrap it up? Any final thoughts, Cory?
No, I'm looking forward to that. Mike's a great mind, and I tell you what, I'm thankful for our partnership with TBI. We got some really amazing things going on. We're talking about cases just before we got on here, right?
Yep.
And I don't know about you. I love drawing on the whiteboard and fixing problems and like applying plans. And so I get really excited because I think we are barely scraping the iceberg on this thing. And there is so much opportunity to help people and align this partnership even more, that all of it is help for people, building businesses, and just being a super powerful partner with you guys.
I agree. And as we talked about earlier, wealth management is a blind spot for so many of our advisors and so many of their customers, that it really needs to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed by you as an advisor with the help of Cory, with the help of TBI, because if they're not going to go to you, they're going to go to somebody else that may or may not have their best interest in mind. So we want to have you armed and ready to do everything you need to do. So thanks, Cory.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, man.